We got breaking news out of the world of college basketball. It is official. Jay Wright is retiring as the head coach of Villanova. This was first reported by our Matt Norlander. Wright has been weighing his retirement for months now and informed the team of his decision on Wednesday evening. The Hall of Fame head coach won 2 national titles during his 21-year run with the Wildcats. Fordham's Kyle Neptune is expected to be Wright's successor at Villanova. First on the story, our Matt Norlander here to break it all down. Matt, interesting news here and unexpected to some. Can you give us an idea of what happened from April 2nd to today that led Jay Wright to this decision to officially retire?
Well, I think between April 2nd and today on April 20th, I'm told by multiple sources that Jay Wright had pretty much arrived at the decision that he thought he was going to retire once Villanova's season was over. In the subsequent 2 weeks, the school's athletic director, its president, and a few other power brokers at the university, a very tight circle, met with Jay multiple times, tried to get him to change his mind, even get him for 1 more year. But he came to this decision with his wife. And one source told me there was a real sense, Villanova, for those that are outside, for those watching fans, it has a reputation in a good way of being Fort Knox, meaning that information doesn't usually leak out of that program a lot. So within the program, by about mid to late March, there was a real sense that this indeed might have been Jay Wright's last go of it. He had zero intention, zero desire to do what Mike Krzyzewski just completed, which is obviously a farewell tour. And just a little more context on this, Joe. I mean, I'm told by one source that Jay Wright did not feel like he had anything left to prove, and he didn't. 2 national titles, 4 Final Fours. He just got into the Hall of Fame in 2021. He brought Villanova to the absolute peak of the sport. He's the greatest coach in program history. Villanova has lorded over the Big East since that league was reformed, winning the regular season all but 2 times, winning 5 Big East tournament titles, getting a 3-seed or better 9 times since 2009. I was told by one source he was feeling the effects of some burnout. Yes, he's only 60, but he had grown a bit weary with the way that the sport was going and everything that was tied to the job. Yes, the news is stunning, certainly from the outside in. Jay Wright wasn't necessarily banking on absolutely retiring heading into the season, but as the season wore on, he arrived at that moment. And I have to say, I want to add just one personal anecdote here. I went to the Villanova at Providence game back in February. I had some on-record conversation with Jay Wright, and I had some off-record conversation with Jay Wright. And I remember walking out of that building that night thinking to myself, man, he just gave me a lot more, like he's a wonderful guy to deal with. He gave me a lot to think about there. And now reflecting back on that conversation we had, it just seems like it makes more sense. And I think that he had privately made this decision in February into March, and it was just a matter of coming to closure with what he has decided to do here. Yeah,
the seeds of this, as you're telling us here, planted long before the decision was made. But it's interesting, as we look at these images of the great successes in Jay Wright's career, specifically to this last season, what will be remembered as his last season as the head coach of Villanova. Does this change the way you categorize what they accomplished in this Final Four run just a month ago?
Oh, to a certain extent, Joe, I think so. No, he's not going out in the way. How about this? How about the fact that all of the attention was paid, understandably so. Mike Krzyzewski, we were actually, no one really knew it. Only a few people could have really known it. We were watching the end of a college career of 2 Hall of Famers at the Final Four. One everyone knew about, and the other almost no one knew about. And for Jay Wright to make a Final Four in what should now be his final season, we can get to what I'm told about his NBA wants or desires in a second here. I think it's about as good as you could possibly end, shy of going out with the title a la Al McGuire, John Wooden. It's extremely hard to do that. And I think all things considered, I actually think it enhances his legacy. And I do think that Jay Wright retiring the way he is doing now, he goes down undoubtedly as a top 20 all-time men's college basketball coach. He can be even higher on that list. If you want to debate top 10 or whatever, we can. But he is undeniably one of the greats in the history of the sport.
A retirement as classy as that double-breasted suit we know him so well for. Matt, you took us there. The obvious leap here, the obvious question is, what is next for Jay Wright, whether that's relaxing with his family, if he is experiencing some of that burnout, or there are some NBA teams, namely the one in purple and yellow, that do have a head coaching vacancy. Is that a carrot dangling out in front of him that might reignite his interest, or are you reporting that this is a retirement from coaching basketball?
I am reporting through two sources that this is a retirement from basketball. Jay Wright will not seek a next stage of his career. In fact, I had one source pass along to me that he couldn't possibly see Jay Wright continuing coaching in the NBA, particularly because of he was on the Olympic. Remember, he was an Olympic coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't get that job to follow up with Pop. It wasn't necessarily that it was all his decision, but I think if Jay Wright really wanted to lobby to be the next Olympic coach, he would have really been strongly considered. One source told me he got his taste with the Olympics and said if he could never ever coach those guys for 82 games. Never say never. I get all of that. In fact, it would not stun me if a general manager or two called Jay Wright this year, next year, the year after. But I'm told this is a decision that is a retirement to step away from coaching basketball permanently. He does not see himself coaching in the NBA. He has no desire to do it. Retiring from Villanova means that Jay Wright has coached his last game. And yes, he has told his team that he is done. That happened in a meeting on Wednesday night, a source told me. And in that meeting, a source reiterated what was previously reported by CBS Sports. Kyle Neptune, former assistant who spent the past season at Fordham, he is going to be the next head coach of the Villanova Wildcats.
I want to get to Kyle Neptune to here in a moment, but before we do, you sort of outlined your relationship with Coach and how it's grown over the years. I want to give you the platform here to not only talk about that relationship, but how you characterize this career. I know it's all happening quickly and in real time here, but when you look back at this tenure at Villanova, what are the immediate thoughts that come to your mind?
The first thought that comes to mind is Jay Wright will have something affixed to his career that I think will be long-lasting, and he will probably be regarded as the best coach in a given decade. When we think 1980s, what do we think? We think, well, that might be the decade that maybe John Thompson owned, right? When we think the 1990s, is that Mike Krzyzewski, right? When we think the 2010s, it's going to be Villanova. 2016 and 2018 national championship runs. Chris Jenkins with one of the most famous shots in the history of the sport. Villanova will bookend those titles with an 2009 Final Four appearance, and then obviously here in 2022. And it really is a remarkable career. I do think that the Big East getting to a point where it was salvaged. Think back to a decade ago when we had a lot of conference realignment. The Big East broke off and was the Catholic Seven, Villanova, an original member. A lot of uncertainty about how strong the league would be going forward. Villanova has carried the flag for that league. It has become the dominant team in that league, and in doing so has continued to keep that conference's reputation high. The Big East is rated as the number 3 or number 4 conference in the country consistently since then. It hasn't been the 6th, 7th, or 8th best. A lot of that is the way that Jay Wright did it. As you see the highlights here, I cannot help but mention the Villanova culture. I'm not saying that this is the way you have to do it or that it should be done. The one thing I love about men's college basketball is different styles make for different fights, and you can win in different ways. Jay Wright did not rely on one-and-done players. He grew players. They got better as they went along. You saw what Colin Gillespie was able to do from returning from injury. We see what Jalen Brunson is doing literally right now in the NBA playoffs. It's a testament to going into that system and into that culture. It's a really, really special place, and that will be attached to him. Jay Wright will probably have a future in television if he wants it, and trust me, the phone will be ringing for that as well. But as for his coaching career, he leaves as one of the game's greatest coaches, and frankly, hearing from a few head coaches who didn't know this was coming, and in the minutes since it's broken, there's been a lot of, our game's in a great place, but wow, we've lost Mike Krzyzewski, Jay Wright, and Roy Williams in the span of, a little over 12 months here. This is a little bit of a shock to the system. These humongous, multi-time national championship winning coaches. It's right. And we are somewhat ushering in a new age for men's college basketball.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.